with the success of their first play, which was My Fair Lady, Sarafina was their second play. Their third play was an original Kenyan production. And the success of Sarafina, I'll never forget the audition day for the next play, which was titled Luanda. I showed up for that audition at Lavington United Church. And saw an audition audition committee looking at people like, there was hundreds, Richie, I'm not lying to you. Hundreds of people showed up for that audition. Hundreds. To the extent that we had to be auditioned in groups.
What?
They couldn't take one at a time. They'd have been there for 3 days if they took one person at a time. So they were literally auditioning us in groups. So they take group of 5, you're the first group of 5, second group of 5, third group of 5, and they had a lot of groups of 5 to go through. And then once you passed through that first audition, then you could attend the second audition.
Take me through an audition. What happens?
It depends on the job. An audition for musical means that you go and you present 1 minute of singing, 1 minute of acting, 1 minute of dancing, because you need to be able to do all 3.
Mm-hmm. This for like Luanda, what you needed to do?
No, because there were so many of us and the audition committee was overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. They gave group tasks, group improvisation tasks to 5 people. And I was like, I guess we're improvising again. So we improvised a little skit about someone who, and Mugambi was in my group, I remember, about a lady who kills her boss. And it's a very quick succession. A lady who's being mistreated by her boss goes and shoots him in the back. And then myself and one other dude were now the questioning committee, and we find the wrong person guilty and arrest them, while the lady who shot him goes free. Really short, probably 3-4 minutes.
You're not given preference because, I was in Sarafina. It's
No.
Zero.
All of us were back to 1. That's why we were auditioning to start with. Then after they shortlisted us, and they had to shortlist a lot of people, then they came down to probably the last, maybe 100 people, maybe less. And now we were to show up for an audition where we were singing and acting and dancing, which was the classic audition. And I will never forget walking into the room. It was an original stage musical of the story of Luanda. The book was written by Kajetan Boy under the pseudonym Moza, and the music, Likarion Wainaina. It was going to be directed by Pauline Komu again, and just like any other musical production, a date had been set for which there was probably not enough rehearsal time. This is what happens almost every time. You set the date way in advance. So we started work on this musical called Luanda.
So you got in?
Yes, I did get a role.
And
I got in.
Did you get?
So what they would do was you'd get in, and then based on how rehearsal was going, then they would assign roles. But Luanda was very different from Sarafina. Sarafina had a ready script. Luanda was still a work in progress. Every day up until a few days to getting on stage, we were still finding the story.
Okay, hold on, Mugash.
Yeah.
Let's change some batteries.
Sure.
When we come back, I want you to break down this Luanda process.
Yeah, this is acting story, man.
I know. This is it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be back. Mugash, your story is inspirational things. Again, for those of you who are catching this episode here, go back. It's so much more value when you hear the journey and you hear the steps that he's taken to get where he's at. There's a point when his energy went low just because he was reminiscing on losing such a friend. You know what I mean? So Mugash, thank you first and foremost for being so real. But I love where the story is going. I love that the energy is back up because it's good things. There's a lot of hope in your story.
Yeah.
We're at Luanda. In fact, you're even just skimming through the, audition process. Like, come on.
No, it wasn't.
Of course I was going to make it. There are 400 guys who showed up, but come on, man.
No, this one, this one wasn't skimming. This one, we really had to work hard. We really had to work hard for this one.
But, I mean, there's a thing that you said, that they were auditioning on 3 things. Dance, singing, and acting. Dance, that's your history.
Yeah, true.
All
true,
over.
True,
That's what you were talking about. True. That's what I'm telling you guys, go back. Singing, that's the choir singing and all these other things that have happened in what do you call this? In Lenana.
In high school, yeah.
You get?
Yeah.
And then now there's acting, which is an obsession, passion that entered you from the day you were a 5-year-old and a drum was given and you watched E.T. It's like you're analyzing and having this photographic memory that you memorize things and sort of want to express and bring them out. So you did just land the role. And that's the thing that I want. That's why I tell guys, go back and listen to the history. You didn't just win the role because you hadn't put in the work. Your life and your journey
was leading,
was preparing you for now.
That's
okay.
Good
Enough of my intro.
Good point. So Luanda, we had to be shortlisted to end up at the main audition now, the actual main event where now you had to perform 1 minute of singing, 1 minute of song, 1 minute of dance, 1 minute of acting. Now we knew at this point that Eric Wainaina was going to be writing the music. What we did not expect was that he was going to be at the audition.
Who you also danced for.
Yes.
With Olova.
With Olova. And that's the first time I met him, and I'm like, oh, this is Eric Wainaina, and this is 4 years later. 4 years later.
This is so cool.
And I remember walking to the audition room, and the thing about Eric is his distinct eyes. You walk in and you're like, oh, I know those eyes. Oh shit, it's Eric Wainaina. And I did the acting thing first. I probably did the dancing thing last. Yeah. And I even remember what I sang for the audition. I believe I sang Personal Jesus by Tony, Personal Jesus. That was my jam. That's what I ended up singing.
Tony is the gospel prince.
Yes, he was. I mean, that was the closest you could get to not singing secular, because my things were still very much with the church, and I'm like, I'm not going to go in audition and sing a secular song. No, I will sing a Christian song that has some soul to it.
Yeah.
So Personal Jesus was it. And I can't lie to you, man. When I walked out of that audition room, I didn't think I'd made it, because I felt I could be much better. But unexpectedly, I got a call, and I was told, yep, show up for rehearsal. And you're in.
Did they tell you what they liked about you?
No, they don't usually do that.
Do you ever ask?
No. You don't want to know.
You don't?
No, I personally
Such
don't
a different
know.
human being.
I don't want to know because then you'd beg the question what didn't work, and I don't want to know about that. I just want to go in and do my best and leave.
Okay, sir.
The feedback bit is hard. I only ended up ever asking at an audition why I didn't get the role and how I can do better, because I didn't get the role. Yeah, and this is later on. I'll come to it. So we did Luanda.
Tell me again, there's a thing that you've been doing that I want us to sort of do. I want you to paint a picture of, if you can, you've painted a picture of film, media and entertainment, FM, MW, all of these other things. You've painted a picture of radio. I want you to give us an example of the theater industry right now. Is Sterling Q the only ones? Are there other guys?
That's a very good question. Oh, wow. Okay. So I've sort of gotten ahead of myself.
No, you haven't. You're just giving your story. But then I'm just throwing this to you because of your photographic memory.
The acting scene in Nairobi was a stage. It was a stage acting scene. If anyone was going and doing any screen work, because screen work required budgets, it required lights, and the cameras weren't like the ones filming right now. They were filming onto tapes, and there was a lot of technical knowledge required, and
so it wasn't like Glee.
The process is long, and it requires special skills, and it's expensive. So we didn't have much of a screen scene.
Was there even a screen scene?
There was. There, like I said, there were...
The Vioja Mahakamani is an example of a screen.
There was that.
Okay.
Yeah, but then aside from the Vioja Mahakamanis and your Vitukos and Vitimbis and stuff, there was still a lot of NGO films being shot. These were largely short films, not very long, would be made to air on TV, because that's where they could be seen. And then there was ads. Advertising was huge. Okay. Yeah. The screen scene then was sana advertising. Okay. And then of course a bit of local TV. But stage was where it was at. There was a lot of stage groups. The ones that come to mind right now, At that point, when I was auditioning for Luanda, of course, there was Phoenix, where everyone wanted to end up. Phoenix Players was a repertory theatre that put on a play every month.
Did you want to end up at Phoenix?
I wanted to end up at Phoenix. When I talk about that, the celebrities, when I was growing up, were the stage actors. When I'm talking about the Club Kiboko days, when I'm talking about the days of competing in dance with Raider, and they were already in the theatre. Theatre was considered at that point, and Phoenix Theatre in particular, was considered the place you went to if you're looking for fine acting talent. If you were at Phoenix, you had better chances of ending up in ads, you had better chances of ending up in emceeing functions, you actually had better chances of ending up in any other art form. And the work was pretty high quality. Rest in peace, James Falkland. I never got to work with him. I got to meet him once, but by that point he'd retired from Phoenix. But people who'd worked with him said you were never the same afterwards. And I
Shinde has said that over and over again.
Yeah, never. You were never the same. And I just had stories and stories. I never got to work with him, ever. An interesting side note here, when Shinde got the role of Cinderella, the gentleman that played Prince Charming was my classmate in high school. All of us graduated the same year. I don't know why they decided that they were gonna cast principal roles with such young actors straight out of high school. But when I was speaking to my friend Ariba Olembo, God rest his soul, I remember asking him, how did you do it? At this point, I don't even know where Phoenix is. I never dreamed that I would ever be in Phoenix, and yet here you are at Phoenix. What madness is this? And he told me who I need to talk to if I want to audition and that sort of thing. But then I got into campus and went into dance, and that never happened. So I still really wanted to be in Phoenix. But right now,
Would you go and watch plays in Phoenix?
I had never gone to see a play at Phoenix at that point because they were a little bit pricey.
Okay.
The Phoenix model was one of membership. People paid an annual membership because it was a repertory theatre. Again, they were presenting something like clockwork. So members could actually organize their time. They'd be like, this play was showing in this month. By the 18th, was it? 16th of the next month, the next play began, and it went all the way to the end of that month, by which point they started auditioning and rehearsing for the next play, and that would start on the 16th, and it would go on like that. So there was always, at one point, people either rehearsing or putting on a show. That theatre never ever had down days where they're not doing anything.
Yeah. In high school, Braeburn boarding, we would get every Friday in Braeburn, you could just sign, and it's taken off your activity fund.
Yeah.
So you just go and sign and say, I want to go to Sarit Center to watch a movie, or I want to go to Phoenix to watch a play. I didn't know at this time that this Phoenix, I mean, I would like to go. I would go to Phoenix probably, like you're saying, once every 2 months. But I didn't understand the history. Just go watch a play, enter back the bus, go back to school. You get. But now when I hear you, I'm like, I feel blessed that I had the privilege to go and experience all these theatrical plays. And watch them, have access to them. Now is when I'm like, oh my God, we were very fortunate to have this access.
No, you absolutely were. Because that wasn't the theatre that everyone went to. It was members only. It was pretty highly priced, and you had to pay a ticket price of like 800 bob per show. It's early 2000s, man. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money, especially for someone who's on his first job or someone who's in campus or that sort of thing. So I never attended a play at Phoenix until much later on.
Okay.
But we had Phoenix. There was Heartstrings Ensemble. Heartstrings was doing a lot more scripted content at that point.
This is where Churchill comes in.
Yeah. He was one of the people who was not one of the founders, but he was one of the more perpetual actors within that unit.
Listen, Rosemary, there's a very simple explanation to this. Now, why don't you take everybody to the police station?
Police?
Don't even ask.
Oh, well, don't forget to take your little basket with you.
I beg your pardon. Hey, don't talk to my mom like
I shall... Your mom? I thought your mom had an unfortunate accident with the number 34 bus.
Yes. Hello. Excellent.
Will somebody tell me what's
Now,
happening?
you're going in the ambulance. Now.
Do you mind giving me an explanation to this?
Don't worry, I'm sure the speaker will have an explanation.
That's good. Don't hang around. Don't be a stupid.
Hey, Leslie, don't insult your father.
There was a bunch of other theatre houses or productions. I can't
KNT?
remember all of them. KNT was largely hired out by lots of people. Yeah, which is why we went and performed Sterling Q plays there. But there was plays like Mbala Mwezi, players. Oh man, yeah.
The church circles now.
Church circle within the theatre scene. Remember, there was a lot of dance going on. So there was a theatre scene, but theatre scene within the Christian circles, a lot of good theatre was coming out of Daystar University.
I get.
Yeah.
Because I remember, again, I'll throw this back. Because when I was a kid, I remember watching Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames and giving my life to Christ because I was scared I'm going to hell with everybody else.
Let me put it this way, dude. Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames, in terms of a theatrical play, in terms of the quality of a theatrical play, if you had a pretty average play here, Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames would be here.
Okay.
Because the Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames was all about, actually probably here, is all about just winning people over by scaring them into salvation. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Because what's the basic storyline of Hell's Flames? Establish a heaven, establish a hell. That's it. And establish heaven as a place you want to go to and hell as a place you don't want to go to. Start the film with the crucifixion of Jesus Christ to remind everyone, this is why we're here. This is why he died. Are you ready? And then after you've played out the crucifixion of Jesus, then afterwards have real life people who look like you. Throw you forward to present day. People who look like you, making the decisions that you make, talking just like you do, but showing what the consequences of those are for the everlasting. So you always had people who were in one thing or another, and then they die, and then they end up at the gates. And then they're told, you go this way or that way.
So you're saying, from a technical production element, it wasn't nothing to be up. From an emotive part, it definitely caught us.
Yeah, definitely. But it's not in by any way, shape or form high theatre.
Okay,
No,
I understand.
it's not.
And I get what you're trying to say.
It's not. It's manipulative, cheap. I'm sorry. I mean, this is my point of view. It's manipulative, it's cheap, but it doesn't hide its intention. It wears its intentions on its sleeve. It's to scare you into giving your life to Christ.
No. I've never looked at it from that perspective. So I like your perspective. What other Nairobi cinema?
There was a lot of independent shows showing there, Christian theatre. You're right. So Christian theatre was on the up and up, thanks to Daystar, thanks to the guys at Nairobi Cinema, whose names I can't remember, and also alumni of Daystar who are putting on their own productions as well.
Okay, and now there's this Sterling Q side.
And then there's Sterling Q, and Sterling Q was where it was at, because they had, like, the musical direction was done by Robert Obaga. Mr. Obaga. I call him Mr. Obaga. I'm sorry, I tried to call
Monica's
him his first
father.
name. Yeah, Monica Obaga's dad.
And Monica is going to come back into the conversation.
Yeah, she is, yes. So that was what the scene was like. There was a lot of high quality work. The other thing that was very different about theatre was, again, because our media options were very little. We still had the 2 or 3 stations on TV, and there was no YouTube. There was really no internet to speak of that had multimedia.
Internet was email.
Yeah, internet was a lot of email, GIFs, articles, blogs. We called them blogs at that point. And there was not as much multimedia content there then. And excuse me. And Sterling, if we're talking about a food chain, the people who are at the top were Sterling Q and Phoenix. Okay. In terms of quality, in terms of the audience that they were going for, and in terms of production value. But not on any other things. I mean, there was a lot of good work coming out of other theatres, but the ones that were considered, were Phoenix and Sterling Q.
Very professional in the way that they did their stuff.
Yeah, and they had scale to them. They had some quality to them. I
get what you mean.
The other bit of theatre that was still thriving was, of course, set book, and that one will never die, as long as there's theatre plays that are part of not recommended but compulsory study for high schools, then you'll always have set book theatre.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back now to Luanda and now your experience within that working environment.
Luanda was special because we were figuring it out as we went along, and the music was so wonderful, and we were also excited about this play we were putting together. As far as I knew,
the acting, they make the script to fit you. So it's not that you're coming in to read.
No. The script was already ready, and then they would now check the actors that were most, able to do this work.
What role did you get in this Luanda? And what was the general story of Luanda?
Good question. General story of Luanda was two kids born at the same time who will later become rivals. A man called Luanda, a little boy called Luanda, and a boy called Opul. Now, the things that made this story unique were that Luanda didn't have that strength. The story of Luanda, the basic story of Luanda is this this great Luo warrior whose body was as hard as stone, and spears and swords and arrows would glance off him.
Yeah.
And that made him like a great warrior in battle. And when the Luo rose to become the dominant ethnic group, as far as military prowess went, the Nandi, who were their chief enemies, in a way to sort of soften him up or gain his trust, send him a wife, a bride. And this bride discovers that the secret of his strength is in his shadow. And if you destroy the shadow, if you stab the shadow, that's where his strength is. And then Nandi go and stab his shadow and he dies. And in his place, a huge rock was formed. And then I think the rock is now Kitmikai. I might be wrong, but I think that's a basic story. So we took a little bit of creative freedom with this and had added bits of the story where he failed his village by not being able to defend it against a particularly brutal Nandi attack. And in the process, his friend or his nemesis, Opul, who's his tribesmate, his parents die, and Opul blames Luanda. And Luanda sort of takes himself into self-exile and is completely dejected, and he's weak and he's beaten and he's whatever, and he calls to the ancestors, and his forefathers show up and say, "How dare you wake us from our sleep? What do you want?" And he's like, "I want power." And they're like, "Fine, you want power? You're going to be invisible, but you be careful with that power. And always remember where your power really lies. That's the thing you need to protect, which is his shadow." And everything goes on pretty much the same up until, he's killed in the end. But in between, there's lots of music and dance and commentary on Kenyan community at that point. It was a wonderful, well-written, well-acted play. And it seemed to move people so much, to the extent that one person who used to write articles for the Saturday magazine in The Nation was writing about something to do with health. And they were like, "I never do this, but if you ever get a chance this weekend, please go watch Luanda. It's one of the finest theatrical experiences I've ever had." It was wonderful. And part of it was happenstance and a glorious accident, and part of it was a lot of work. I played the role of, and this role we sort of discovered as we were training, as we were doing it, because we were workshopping the play a lot as we were going through it, and a lot of rewrites happened. But I played the role of a warrior called Omolo, who was like Luanda's right-hand man and was his sort of trainer. And I was the outcast, and I was a slow kid. Parallels to real life. And I was a bit of a pariah in the community, but for that reason I chose to that battle was going to be my thing. And therefore I became an excellent wrestler and hand-to-hand combat person, and therefore I used to train Luanda.
So that was a pretty decent role.
But do you know, I sort of, this was it. When we were sort of hitting a wall halfway through rehearsals, and the director was like, "You people are not taking this stuff seriously. You're not. So this is what is happening. You're not coming for rehearsal tomorrow. What you're going to do, you're going to go and write essays, and each of you is going to come and present a backstory to me. And I'm going to approve of that backstory. And after that backstory, you are going to present that backstory to everyone, to the entire cast." It was hard. So I wrote my story about Omolo, and I put this whole backstory of I'm Luanda's right-hand man, I'm the one who's looking out for him. When he starts descending into hubris and he thinks he's bigger than his powers, I'm the person that's there to tell him, "Dude, you're messing up." And then on the day we were making our rehearsal, our presentations to the rest, I was so nervous that I was trembling. And then I said that this tremble because of my trauma from childhood has always there.
Oh,
And I made
man.
a sort of story of it. And so the entire time I was trembling, even if it was just acting. And for that reason, when they were missing a large loophole in the story, my role ended up getting bumped up from just a tiny forgettable role to, hold up, this guy fulfills a function in the story. Let's give him a few lines, let's give him this, Suddenly from a non-speaking role, I had a few lines and...
Dude, they made you read the essay just like assets or...
Yeah, just like in the ad agency. But of course, this was a story I made up. All of us were making up our own stories, but the makers of the show realized by making the actors really put
Dig
in
deep.
work
Yeah.
and dig deep, it sort of helped them sort of stitch together little plot holes. So a lot of people, that happened. Their roles sort of got bumped up. And the people who are coming to watch the show were like, how is everyone so on point? How is everyone so... Everyone knows why they're there. Everyone knows what they need to do. Everyone is so centered. It was beautiful. So that's all because all of us were doing our work to get our backstories down.
And like how many shows did you do of Luanda?
2 weekends, 1 show Thursday, 1 show Friday, 2 shows Saturday, Sunday. That's 12 shows.
All full.
All sold out.
2004.
2004.
Who was Luanda Gowi?
The role of Londo was played by Goyi Odera.
Oh, nice.
The role of his first wife, the good wife, was played by June Gashui.
Yo.
Her name was Nyaber. The role of his second wife, who was sent in by the Nandi community, was played by Karemi Wamai. Yep. The role of Opul, his arch nemesis, who ended up giving him away to the Nandi. Like he ended up being a cohort and this is another genius part in the story. Everyone thinks it was the Nandi in this real story who killed him. But in this case, it was his arch nemesis, his fellow warrior, who could never forgive him for being responsible for the death of his parents. That role was played by Makbul.
Yo.
Yeah. And then there was a lot of really memorable side roles, like not side roles, but smaller supporting roles. One of them, like the village gossip, the village, I know everything in this village and you can't tell me anything, was played by Atemi Oyungu. And she had a really nice solo that she probably got a standing ovation for. There was a role of Oracle who formed something of the narrator of the story because her role, she was like, she's timeless. She's like, I was here from the very beginning and I'll be here after it's all over. And I can tell you everything. So every time we should take a step out of the story and say, watch this man descend and give himself up to his own desire, blah, blah, blah. That role was played by Helen Mtawali.
What?
Yep.
Valerie wasn't in this one.
No.
Okay.
No.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
So what's next? So now, I mean,
So
how
after
are you feeling, first of all? Where is your mind at right now?
Well, by this point, I have a job. I'm taking time off of the job to go.
Is
and
acting a
rehearse.
side hustle
Acting was a side hustle.
at this time?
Yeah, but I still was really putting my attention into being a good creative, and that was working out. Yeah, so the job is going pretty well. I've joined Ogilvy. I'm still a junior copywriter, still trying to get that off the ground. And after Luanda, I remember that was the first time my phone rang, and on the other end of the phone was Ian Bogwa.
Yo.
And Ian Bogwa had gotten my number from Kamze, I think. And Ian was like, hey, we're doing this play. If you're interested, do you want to come and be a part of it? No audition, nothing. Because Phoenix operated differently. They'd had their Phoenix auditions once a year. And they'd have a whole bunch of people come in and then audition. And then from there, they'd pick the actors. Because it was repertory. You didn't have time to audition for every single show. Yeah, so you had to call people, and if they're available, they came. And so Ian calls me and says, yeah, we have a play. It's called Charlie's Aunt. We have a role that I think you'd be good for. Are you available or interested? And I cannot contain my excitement. And I'm like, yes. And he said, and the best words I ever heard ever, come to Phoenix and come pick up your script.
Oh my God.
at that particular point, I was taken back to a very exact memory where I was sat next to Charles Kiari in a matatu sometime in mid-90s. And Charles Kiari was the shit because, like I said, it was an theater actors scene. So we would see the reviews every Friday in the papers.
Yep.
And we knew Charles Kiari was amazing. And I remember sitting next to him, and I'm like, I'm sitting next to Charles Kiari. And what's Charles Kiari doing? He's reading a script. What's he doing? Is he memorizing lines? What is this? This is amazing. And suddenly I'm going to be like, I'm going to be the person seated in the matatu reading a script. Wow. So I went and picked up the script and we rehearsed for about a month and ended up on a Phoenix stage in the role of, I can't remember his name, but I played a pretty comedic old man in this play called Charlie's Aunt. And then in quick succession, this is 2005.
Huh?
Yeah. And then in quick succession, after Luanda, we did another musical called Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And then I joined Phoenix.
Hold on. This is now Sterling Q still.
It's Sterling Q.
Joseph and the
Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Still, who is involved in this now? Did you again have to go do the auditions and everything?
You auditioned for every single Sterling Q play.
So it wasn't
didn't matter.
Now you've joined the repertoire of people.
Nah, it didn't matter.
So let me ask, how are you doing this and working at the same time? Ogilvy isn't the joking working environment.
No. I mean, it was really busy, but as long as the rehearsals were happening in the evening and on Saturdays, I was fine. So for the most part, I was able to attend the rehearsals.
Okay, so Sterling Q understood that people
had lives, yeah.
And come and act after work.
Yeah.
Okay, so they made it flexible. It's not like where we're headed to as the industry right now.
Now, how the industry works now is that there's people who are doing it full time.
Exactly, that's what I mean. So you're rehearsing.
So you're rehearsing during the day, you're
Exactly.
rehearsing at other hours. So there's a lot of people who might want to get into this but can't make their rehearsal times because
the full-timers are grinding it and are giving it.
Yeah.
But at that time,
a lot of people who were involved in acting were doing other things as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it was rare that you'd had people, if there was people, even people who are working in acting full-time were still doing MC work, TV work, radio work.
I get it.
On the side, yeah.
Okay.
So, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was interesting because I got to meet a whole new bunch of people there. There was this kid, under Sterling Q. There was this kid who'd come out of St. Mary's who was full of energy and could sing very well and had been in Coca-Cola Pop Stars.
Oh, no.
No, he hadn't joined Coca-Cola Pop Stars yet. Nah. His name was Charles Ouda, and Charles could sing so well. He hadn't joined Coca-Cola Pop Stars yet, but we'd seen him in a similarly themed pop star show before. I thought you were going to say
Kevin from Sana.
No, he wasn't involved in that. No. It was Charles Ouda. It was directed by Mugambi Matela. Regina Ray played the role of Potiphar's wife. It was a nice reunion.
What role did you play?
I played the role of one of the brothers. This one was a much smaller role.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
role of Joseph was by Charles Ouda.
Okay.
And the role of Joseph's dad was played by Makbu. And then after we did before we did Joseph, we did a little play called Fiddler on the Roof. Okay, sorry, dude, I have my timeline wrong. I remember we did Fiddler on the Roof. And Fiddler on the Roof was nice. Fiddler on the Roof is a good play. It's funny. And this is the first time we saw Steve Katingima play the role of Nthiga, which was the lead. Linda Modama played his wife. And then there was a lot of these young actors playing the daughters. Charles Ouda also had a big role in that. And then there was this white dude who showed up and wanted to audition. And he was an American dude. And he was committed. This guy was so committed once that after the auditions, they were playing an acting game where you were supposed to fantasize that you were scared by something. So you were told to pick an object or a person in the room that you're scared of and run away from them or react accordingly. And Nick imagined that his image in the mirror was the most scary thing.
Yeah.
And he went and attacked the image and broke one of the mirrors in the dance studio at KNT.